On my 25th birthday, my parents pulled up in a Rolls-Royce to get me. The door opened, and they stepped out, smiling, dressed in expensive formal where I'd only ever seen in magazines. "Son, congratulations. 20 years of testing, and you've passed." I was still clutching a cold, hard bagel in my hand. That was my birthday dinner. I looked at them, then at the car gleaming in the rundown alley. A test? What kind of test takes 20 years of my hunger and cold to complete? My mother walked toward me, reaching for my hand, but I flinched away. The diamond on her finger, the size of a quail's egg, stung my eyes. "Leo, come home with us. We prepared a birthday banquet for you. The Vance family's multi-billion-dollar fortune. It will all be yours one day. My name is Leo Vance." It was a fitting name because for 25 years I had endured most of my life in silence. Endured hunger, endured the cold, endured the ridicule of my classmates and the insults of my landlord. I thought my parents were just like me, silently enduring somewhere I couldn't see. I thought we were a family, relying on each other, fighting poverty together. Until today, my 25th birthday, when they descended upon me like gods in a phantom, dressed in couture. They told me the last 2 decades of my life had been nothing more than a carefully designed test. I looked at my father. His name was Warren Vance, a name that carried an inherent authority. He clapped me on the shoulder, the gesture heavy, weighted with the scrutiny of a man in power. "Not bad. You're tough. We didn't let you get soft." His words struck me like a sledgehammer. Not let me get soft? When I was 5, I was sent to the most dilapidated slum in the city, left in the care of a distant relative. They sent $200 every month on the dot. Not a penny more, not a penny less, just enough to keep me from starving. I grew up in patched-up clothes, eating the cheapest food imaginable. When I was 10, the relative decided the money wasn't enough and kicked me out. I moved into a windowless $150 a month cubicle by myself. In the winter, I came down with a fever, 104 degrees. My body was on fire, my mind a blur. I had no money for a hospital, so I could only curl up in my freezing blankets, pressing against the wall for a sliver of coolness. I kept calling out for Mom and Dad, but the only answer was the howling wind outside. I had thought they were working some grueling job out of state, that they didn't visit to save on travel costs. I even fantasized that when I grew up and made money, I would give them the best life possible. How ridiculous that seems now. While I was writhing on the floor in the middle of the night, stomach cramping from hunger, they were clinking glasses at some lavish banquet. While I was running for miles in a downpour to save a few bucks on subway fare, they were sitting in a warm, comfortable luxury car, complaining about the bad weather. My mother, Isabel, was immaculately preserved, looking no older than her early 30s. She reached out to touch my face, her eyes welling with tears. "Leo, Mom knows you suffered, but it was all for your own good. You can't see a rainbow without the rain. The heir to the Vance family can't be a flower raised in a hothouse." For my own good? What a self-serving excuse. I looked at her and asked, word by word, what if I hadn't passed her test? What if I had died from that fever, or been beaten to death in some alley? Isabel's face went pale. Warren immediately cut in, his tone leaving no room for argument. "There are no what-ifs. A son of Warren Vance isn't that fragile. We were watching you from the shadows. You were always safe." Safe? Was there watching a spectator sport as school bullies shoved my head into a toilet? Was it watching me fight stray dogs for a piece of bread? Was it watching me take an off-the-books construction job to scrape together tuition, nearly getting killed by a falling steel beam? That's what they call safe? In an instant, my heart turned to ice. My entire life had been nothing but a monkey show, and my own parents were the two spectators enjoying it the most. "The test is over," I said softly, my voice so hoarse it didn't sound like my own. "Yes, it's over." Warren laughed. "From this day forward, you are the sole heir to the Vance Corporation. Let's go home. Your brother and your girlfriend are waiting for you." Brother? Girlfriend? My mind buzzed and went blank. I have a brother? And my girlfriend, Chloe, why was she at their house? Chloe and I met in college. We'd been together for 3 years. She was beautiful, gentle, and understanding, and she never cared that I was poor. She was the only light in my dark life. She said she loved me for who I was, not for money. I thought we had true love. Now, it seemed, she might have been part of the test too. They half pushed, half pulled me into the Rolls-Royce. The interior was spacious, filled with a scent I couldn't identify. The soft leather seats were a world away from my hard, unforgiving wooden bed. The car started smoothly, pulling out of the muddy, filthy alley I called home for 2 decades. I glanced back. The old man who ran the corner hot dog stand was staring this way, curious. For years, I had bought 2 of his cheapest hot dogs every day. He would probably never imagine that the poor kid who lived on hot dogs would one day be riding in a car like this. I turned my gaze forward, watching the familiar, dilapidated buildings blur and recede, gradually replaced by gleaming, imposing skyscrapers. We drove into a neighborhood I had only ever seen on TV, an exclusive enclave of the ultra-rich. Every mansion was a fortress, heavily guarded. The car finally stopped in front of the most magnificent villa of all. A massive, wrought-iron gate slowly swung open, and two uniformed security guards bowed respectfully. "Welcome home, Mr. and Mrs. Vance and the young master." Young master, the title made my stomach turn. I followed Warren and Isabel into the villa. The opulence inside was indescribable. A colossal crystal chandelier, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, and walls adorned with paintings I didn't recognize but knew were priceless. On the living room sofa sat a young man about my age. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, exuding an air of nobility. His features were somewhat similar to mine, but his face was etched with a sense of innate superiority. Beside him sat a girl I knew all too well. It was Chloe. She was wearing a white dress I had never seen before, with flawless makeup. The moment she saw me, she stood up, a flicker of unease on her face. "Leo, you're back." The young man also stood, looking me over lazily, a contemptuous smirk playing on his lips. Well, if it isn't my long-lost brother who's been eating dirt for 20 years. "Dad, Mom, this test of yours was pretty harsh. Look what you've turned him into. He looks like a beggar." His words were needles dipped in poison, stabbing into my heart. Warren frowned. "Caleb, is that any way to talk to your brother?" Though he scolded him, there was no real reprimand in his expression. Instead, I saw a flicker of pride and indulgence in his eyes for this son, Caleb. So his name was Caleb. One son named Leo, one named Caleb. One destined for the shadows, the other to live in the brilliant light. The irony was suffocating. Isabel walked over and took Chloe's hand, patting it affectionately. "Chloe, dear, thank you for waiting. See, Leo is back now. Your good days are about to begin." Chloe forced a smile at me, but her eyes darted away. I stared at her, my heart feeling like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. I asked her, "You knew all along, didn't you?" Chloe's face went white. She bit her lip, not daring to meet my gaze. Beside her, Caleb scoffed and answered for her. "Of course she did. Seriously, bro, did you really think a girl like Chloe would fall for a broke loser like you? Let me spell it out for you. Chloe was handpicked by Mom and Dad to be your fiancée. Getting her to approach you, to play out this drama of unwavering love, was also part of the test. It was to make you feel that even in the depths of despair, true love and hope still existed. So, are you touched?" Boom. In that moment, my world completely shattered. Touched? All I felt was a bone-deep chill and an infinite, suffocating nausea. The only light in my life was just another fake lamp they had installed. All my perseverance, all my hope, all my love. It was all a joke. I looked at Chloe, the girl who had made me soup when I was sick, who had held me when I was down, who had promised to be with me forever. Her face was now a mask of panic and guilt. "Leo, let me explain." "Explain what?" I cut her off, my voice terrifyingly calm. "Explain how you told me you loved me while taking my parents' money and enjoying a life of luxury. Explain how you watched me eat stale bread while laughing at what a fool I was." Tears streamed down Chloe's face. "No, Leo, enough." Caleb cut her off impatiently, pulling her behind him in a protective stance. "What's with all the crying? Isn't my brother the young master of the Vance family now? You're about to marry into a multi-billion-dollar family. What more could you want?" He turned to me, his face, so similar to my own, filled with contempt. "And you, bro, don't be ungrateful. The fact that Chloe was willing to act alongside you for so many years is a blessing. If it were me, I wouldn't have been able to stand the smell of poverty on you for a single day. Breaking a single bagel into 2 meals, wearing the same shirt for 5 years. Aren't you ashamed?" Every word was a knife. I ignored him, my gaze still locked on Chloe. I just wanted to hear one true word from her mouth. "Did you ever love me?" I asked, using every ounce of strength I had. Even for a second. Chloe trembled. She opened her mouth, but under Caleb's warning glare, she couldn't say a word. Her silence was the cruelest answer. I laughed, and as I laughed, tears streamed down my face. I was the world's biggest fool. Warren, seeing the chaotic scene, finally scowled. "All of you shut up." His authoritative voice silenced the living room instantly. He walked up to me, looking down at me from his superior height. "Leo, I know this is hard for you to accept right now, But these are the facts. We did this for your own good, for the good of the entire Vance family. Your brother, Caleb, has been spoiled since he was a child. He's impulsive and not fit to take on great responsibility. But you, after 20 years of hardship, you are resilient and ruthless. That is what the Vance family needs in an heir. He said it as if he were bestowing upon me the greatest honor imaginable. Ruthless? Yes, I once broke another beggar's leg to snatch a discarded chicken drumstick. I once smashed the heads of 3 muggers with a brick to protect the $300 I earned from a summer job. What they saw as ruthlessness was the survival instinct I had paid for with blood and tears. And now, it had become my most praiseworthy quality in their eyes. So, you can just strip away 20 years of my life with a clear conscience. I lifted my head, looking him directly in the eye. It wasn't stripping it away, it was forging you. Warren's tone grew heavy. Those who achieve great things don't sweat the small stuff. All you lost was an insignificant childhood. What you've gained is an entire business empire. An insignificant childhood. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms. The nights I cried alone in the cold, the days my stomach twisted in knots from hunger, the moments people pointed at me, calling me a bastard and gutter trash. All of it was just insignificant small stuff in their eyes. And what if I looked at him, and then at Isabel, I say no? What if I don't want your filthy money, and I don't want to be your damn heir? The air seemed to freeze. Warren's face turned ashen. Isabel rushed forward, grabbing my arm. Leo, don't be foolish. How can you not want it? This was always meant to be yours. Mine. I shook her hand off, taking a step back, as if she were carrying a contagious disease. What's mine is that cold bagel, that leaky, broken-down room, those patched-up old clothes. Not this. I gestured at the opulent splendor around us, my voice rising to a roar. Everything about you makes me sick. Insolent. Warren exploded in a rage, swinging his hand across my face. A sharp, stinging pain spread across my cheek. It was the first time in my 25 years that my father had ever hit me. I didn't dodge, didn't fight back. I just stared at him. My calmness seemed to enrage him more than any resistance could. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to refuse? He pointed a shaking finger at my nose. Let me tell you something, Leo. You were born a Vance, and you'll die a Vance. Your life was never yours to decide from the moment you were born. Accept it or not, you are staying here. Men, he bellowed. 2 security guards immediately entered from outside. Take the young master to his room upstairs. He is not to take one step out of that room without my permission. I didn't resist. I didn't have the strength to. My entire world was in ruins. I was like a puppet, dragged upstairs by the 2 guards. As we passed Caleb, he leaned in and whispered, his voice audible only to me, "Don't fight it, bro. You're just a dog mom and dad raced. Now that your master wants you home, you should be obedient. Don't even think about running, and don't even think about my position. It's mine." I was locked in a room. It was huge, bigger than my entire old apartment. It had its own private bathroom, a soft king-size bed, and massive floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, there was a manicure garden and a sparkling blue swimming pool. But to me, it felt more oppressive, more suffocating than my windowless cubicle. This was a gilded cage, a prison built of money, and I was the inmate sentenced to life. I was kept in that luxurious prison for 3 days. In those 3 days, I saw no one but a maid who brought my meals on schedule. The food was lavish, delicacies of every kind, but I couldn't eat a bite. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Chloe's evasive face and Caleb's contemptuous smile. In Warren's matter-of-fact tone, all you lost was an insignificant childhood. Insignificant. My stomach began to cramp, not from hunger, but from the 20 years of repressed pain that had finally erupted. I curled up on the floor, my clothes soaked with cold sweat. When a maid brought my dinner, she saw me and screamed. Soon, a family doctor in a white coat was summoned. He ran a series of tests and concluded. Chronic gastritis from long-term malnutrition, complicated by an acute spasm triggered by severe emotional distress. He gave me a shot and some pills. As he was leaving, he looked at me with pity and sighed. "Young master, you should try to let it go. It's not worth destroying your own body over." He was right. It wasn't worth it. Destroying my body for people who weren't worth it was just stupid. After the pain subsided, I pushed myself up from the floor and took a real look at the room for the first time. Then I walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window. It was on the 2nd floor, overlooking a soft lawn. A jump probably wouldn't kill me. An idea began to grow wildly in my mind. Escape. I had to get out of here. I didn't want to be some heir, and I never wanted to see those hypocritical faces again. I just wanted to go back to my own world, a world that was broken, but at least it was real. I started a plan. The villa was heavily guarded, with cameras and patrols everywhere. The main gate was impossible. The only way out was the window in my room. I spent a couple of days observing, learning the guards' patrol schedules. Between 3 and 4 in the morning was their slack time. I would only have one shot. On the fourth night, I pretended to be asleep. When the clock on the wall struck 3, I quietly slipped out of bed. I took off the expensive silk pajamas and changed back into the faded, worn-out clothes I had arrived in. These clothes made me feel like the real Leo again. I twisted the bed sheets into a rope, tied one end to the bedpost, and threw the other out the window. Taking a deep breath, I climbed out and began to lower myself down. The second story wasn't too high, but not low either. The sheets ran out before I reached the ground. Steeling myself, I let go and dropped. A sharp pain shot through my ankle, but I bit my lip to keep from crying out. Ignoring the injury, I limped toward the villa's perimeter wall. The wall was high and topped with an electric fence. But I had already scouted a spot during the day, a corner near a large tree that was a blind spot for the cameras, where the wiring on the fence looked loose. Gritting my teeth against the pain in my ankle, I scrambled up the tree. Then, like a gecko, I pressed myself against the trunk and edged my way toward the wall. I carefully avoided the electric wiring, took a deep breath, and jumped. The ground on the other side was also grass, which cushioned most of the impact. I had done it. I was out. The air of freedom had never tasted so sweet. I didn't dare linger. I dragged my injured foot and ran desperately into the darkness. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get as far away from that golden cage as possible. I wandered the streets aimlessly, the pain in my ankle getting worse. As dawn approached, I found myself at a familiar intersection. It was where Chloe's apartment was. Even though I knew she had deceived me, at that moment, some ghost of a memory pulled me to the building. I looked up at the familiar third-floor window. The light was off. Maybe she had already moved out, moved into that gilded cage that was supposed to be mine. I laughed at my own foolishness and turned to leave. Just then, a taxi pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and a familiar figure got out. It was Chloe. She looked tired, but she was still wearing designer clothes. She paid the driver and walked toward the building entrance. I instinctively ducked into the shadows. I don't know why I hid. I just didn't want her to see me in my pathetic state. She didn't see me and went straight inside. A few minutes later, the light on the third floor switched on. I stood downstairs like an idiot for a long, long time. I didn't know what I was doing or what I was waiting for. Maybe a part of me still held on to some ridiculous fantasy. A fantasy where she would pull back the curtains, see me, and rush down to tell me it was all a misunderstanding. But nothing happened. Just as my heart turned to stone and I was about to leave for good, another car, a flashy red Ferrari, screeched to a halt at the curb. The door opened, and Caleb stepped out. He glanced up at the third-floor window, a triumphant smirk on his face, and then strode into the building. My brain roared, then went blank. All the blood in my body rushed to my head. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles were white, my body trembling with a rage so violent it shook me to my core. I bolted across the street and kicked open the old, flimsy entrance door. I ran up the stairs like a madman, no longer feeling the searing pain in my ankle. I kicked open her apartment door, which was slightly ajar. In the living room, Caleb had Chloe pressed against the wall, kissing her hungrily. Her dress was half torn from her shoulder. The sound of the door crashing open startled them, and they both whipped their heads around. When Caleb saw me, there was no surprise on his face, only a taunting smile. He didn't let go of Chloe. Instead, right in front of me, he kissed her even harder. Chloe struggled for a moment, then went limp in his arms. In that instant, I heard the sound of my own heart breaking. It was crisp and loud. "You see?" Caleb finally released her, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, looking at me as if he were watching a play. Chloe straightened her torn dress, her head bowed, refusing to look at me. A guilty flush was still on her cheeks. I didn't speak. I just stared at them, my body shaking not from fear, but from a fury that wanted to burn the world down. "What? You got a problem?" Caleb walked up to me and patted my cheek, a deeply insulting gesture. "I told you before. Chloe was picked out for you by Mom and Dad, but I'm the one she wants. You didn't really think she'd fall for a pathetic loser like you, did you? We've been together for a year. A year. While I was sweating on construction sites to build a future for us. While I was pinching every penny to buy her a birthday gift she liked. They were behind my back, enjoying their secret affair. I was the biggest fool on the planet. Get out." I squeezed the words through my teeth. "Oh, getting attitude now." Caleb laughed, a wild, arrogant sound. "Leo, get a grip on reality. Right now, you're an escapee from my family. Who the hell are you to tell me to get out? This is my place." My voice was as cold as ice. "Your place. Caleb laughed, as if it were the funniest joke in the world. Don't kid yourself. I'm the one who pays the rent here every month. Even your pathetic living allowance. Mom and Dad loaned it to you from my pocket money. So, technically, I'm your creditor. Your benefactor. He leaned in close to my ear, his voice a demonic whisper. And that includes the woman you love. She was just a toy I got tired of and decided to let you have. That sentence was the last straw. I can no longer control the beast inside me. Raph! I roared, and my fist connected with Caleb's face. I threw every ounce of my strength into that punch, sending him flying backward, crashing into the coffee table beside him. The sound of shattering glass was sharp and deafening. Caleb clutched his face as he scrambled up, blood already trickling from the corner of his mouth. His eyes turned venomous. You dare hit me? He roared, lunging at me like a wounded animal. We crashed together, a tangle of limbs and fury. I grew up fighting, and my blows were hard and precise, aimed to cause maximum damage. Caleb, despite his privileged upbringing, seemed to have had some training. For a moment, we were evenly matched. Chloe was screaming nearby, trying to pull us apart, but too afraid to get close. Stop it. Both of you, stop it. Her voice only fueled my rage. I saw an opening and kicked him hard in the knee. Caleb cried out and dropped to the ground. I straddled him, my fists raining down on his face like hammers. This one is for the 10-year-old kid with no home. This one is for the winter I almost died from a fever. This one is for the 20 years I spent eating hard bread. This one is for the 20 years you all treated me like a monkey in a cage. I had lost it. Completely. I just wanted to kill him, to beat the life out of the demon who had ruined my world. Stop! A powerful voice boomed from the doorway. I looked up. It was Warren. He had several bodyguards with him. When he saw the scene, Caleb, bloody and disheveled, his face turned thunderous. You worthless bastard! He roared, rushing forward and kicking me viciously in the back. The blow sent me flying into the wall. I felt like my organs had been rearranged. A mouthful of blood sprayed from my lips. Caleb! Isabel ran in after him. Seeing her son's state, she burst into tears. She rushed to Caleb's side, helping him up. Are you okay? Quick, call an ambulance. Warren strode over to me, his eyes blazing with disappointment and rage. You animal! I was wrong about you. I thought 20 years of hardship would forge you into something better, but I see you're still just a savage who only knows how to solve problems with his fists. How dare you lay a hand on your brother? I lay on the floor and laughed, tears streaming down my face. Brother? To me, he's nothing but scum. Crack! Another sharp slap. Warren's strength was immense. My face swelled instantly, and my ears rang. Seize him, he ordered the bodyguards, pointing at me. Take him back to the villa and lock him in the basement. No food, no water, until I say so. Let's see when he learns the meaning of the word discipline. 2 bodyguards moved in, dragging me up from the floor like a sack of garbage. I didn't fight back. I had no strength left. As they hauled me out the door, I saw Chloe. She was standing by Caleb's side, looking at me with an incredibly complex expression. There was guilt, pity, but mostly fear and detachment. She had chosen Caleb. She had chosen wealth and luxury. And I was just a bothersome stepping stone on her path, one that had now been kicked aside. My heart died completely. I was brought back to the golden cage. This time, what awaited me was not a luxurious room, but a dark, damp basement. The heavy iron door slammed shut behind me with a loud clang. The world plunged into darkness. There was no light in the basement. I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. The air was thick with the smell of mold and dust. I was thrown onto the cold concrete floor. The pain in my back and a sharp throb in my ankle were a dizzying symphony of agony, making it nearly impossible to move. Warren was true to his word. No food, no water. Time lost all meaning. I don't know how long passed, a day, maybe 2. Hunger and thirst were 2 venomous snakes gnawing away at my body and my will. My stomach started to twist in knots again, more violently than ever before. I started to hallucinate. I saw the old man from the hot dog stand, holding a steaming hot dog, beckoning to me. Kid, you hungry? Come and eat. I reached out, trying to grab it, but it vanished like smoke. Then I saw Chloe. She was in that white dress again, looking like an angel. She carried a bowl of hot soup to me and said gently, Leo, have some soup. It'll make your stomach feel better. I struggled to sit up, but my body wouldn't obey. Get out. I squeezed the words from my throat with the last of my strength. The vision of Chloe instantly morphed into Caleb's triumphant, twisted face. Bro, you look just like a dog right now. He laughed, then poured the bowl of hot soup over my face. The scalding liquid shocked me out of the hallucination. It wasn't a hallucination. The basement door opened, and a sliver of light pierced the darkness, so bright it stung my eyes. Caleb stood in the doorway, looking down at me. The cuts on his face had been treated with a few bandages, but they did nothing to diminish the smug look on his face. TSK, TSK. How pathetic. He shook his head as he walked over and squatted down in front of me. Hey bro, did you know? Dad has already decided to transfer 30% of the corporation's shares into my name. He said you're too wild, completely useless. He feels much more at ease with me, the son who received an elite education since birth. All right, and Chloe. He grinned as if just remembering. Mom and Dad have already approved our engagement. The party is next month. You'd better be there to toast us. Every word he spoke was a knife in my heart, but I couldn't feel the pain anymore. My heart was already numb. I looked at him silent. My silence seemed to bore him. What? Not going to beg me. He nudged me with his foot. All you have to do is get on your knees, beg me, call me your dear brother, and I'll go tell Dad to let you out. Maybe even give you a bite to eat. What do you say? Thinking it over, I still said nothing, just stared at him with lifeless eyes. The look was that of a man staring at a corpse. My gaze unsettled him. The smile on his face faded, replaced by a flicker of irritation. You think your silence is going to save you? That I can't do anything to you? He stood up and took a couple steps back. Let me tell you, Leo, this is just the beginning. I'm going to make you understand what happens when you cross Caleb Vance. I'm going to make you watch as I take everything you care about and grind it into the dust, piece by piece. I'm going to make you wish you were dead. With that, he turned and left. The iron door slammed shut again with a loud clang. The basement returned to its deathly silence. Wish I were dead. I was already living it. My consciousness began to fade. Just before I blacked out completely, I thought I heard Isabel's frantic voice outside the door. Caleb, you can't do this to your brother. He'll die. So what if he dies? He's a useless piece of trash. The world would be cleaner without him. That was Caleb's cold reply. You monster. Warren's furious roar. Then, a flurry of hurried footsteps. The door was thrown open. I felt myself being lifted, placed onto something soft. Someone was giving me water, feeding me broth. Like a drowning man, I swallowed greedily. I don't know how much time passed before I finally regained some strength and opened my eyes. I found myself back in that luxurious bedroom. Isabel was sitting by my bed, her eyes red and swollen, her face etched with exhaustion and worry. When she saw I was awake, she was overjoyed. Leo, you're finally awake. You scared your mother to death. She tried to take my hand, but I instinctively pulled it back. Her hand froze in midair, a wounded expression on her face. Leo, I know you hate us, she said in a low voice, a sob catching her throat. But we really were doing it for your own good. The Vance family business, it looks glamorous, but behind the scenes, countless eyes are watching, countless people want to tear us down. Your father, he had no choice. He needed an heir strong enough, ruthless enough, to protect this empire. Caleb, we protected him too much his whole life. He could never handle those wolves. So, we had to place all our hopes on you. Her words were more or less what I had already figured out. The so-called test was just a training program to create a tool who would kill for their family. And Chloe, I asked, my voice hoarse. At the mention of Chloe, a flicker of guilt crossed Isabel's face. Chloe, we were wrong to do that to you. We just thought that in your darkest days, you should have something to hold on to, so you wouldn't completely lose hope. We never thought that she and Caleb would. Enough. I cut her off. I didn't want to hear any more of these hollow excuses. What do you want me to do? I asked directly. Isabel was taken aback, clearly not expecting such a question. She looked at me, her expression complex. Leo, are you willing to accept all of this? I didn't answer her question. I just stared at the ceiling and said softly, give me a phone, a private bank account, and I want the freedom to come and go as I please. From this day forward, I will learn to be the heir you want, but I have my own rules. First, don't call me Leo anymore. Call me by my full name, Leo Vance. Second, stay out of my business. All of you. Third, I paused, turning my head to look at her, enunciating each word. I want Caleb to pay for everything he has done. The chilling tone of my last sentence made Isabel take a step back. She looked at me as if I were a complete stranger. Leo, what are you planning to do? He's your brother. Brother? I pulled at the corner of my mouth, a smile without any warmth. He didn't seem to think of me as his brother when I was starving to death in the basement. Isabel was at a loss for words. She knew what Caleb had done was monstrous, but she would always favor the son she had raised. Leo, Caleb was just being foolish. He doesn't have a bad heart. Please, don't hold it against him, can't you? Can I? I repeated her words, finding them incredibly ironic. You want to talk to me about brotherly love now? Don't you think it's a little late? Where were you when I needed a family the most? Now that you need me, you expect me to forget everything and become your loyal workhorse. Mrs. Vance, do you really think life is that cheap? It was the first time I'd ever called her by her formal name. Isabel's face went deathly pale. Her lips trembled, unable to form a single word. I stopped looking at her, lay back down, and closed my eyes. Tell Warren my conditions. If he agrees, I'll stay. If not, have someone throw me back in that alley right now. From then on, we owe each other nothing. We live or die on our own. My tone was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Isabel looked at me, her eyes filled with a painful struggle. Finally, she sighed and walked out of the room, looking utterly defeated. That afternoon, Warren came to my room. He looked years older than he had just a few days ago. He no longer spoke to me with that scrutinizing, commanding tone. He just sat quietly on the sofa for a long time, then said in a weary voice, I agree to your conditions. The card is on the nightstand. It's been set up for you. No password, no limit. From today on, you can go where you want, do what you want. We won't interfere. Starting tomorrow, I'll have Mark Jennings assist you, get you familiar with the company. He finished, stood up, and prepared to leave. At the door, he paused, his back to me. Leo, about Caleb. I know you're angry, but no matter what, he is your only brother. I hope you'll show him some mercy. I didn't answer. Show him mercy? That would depend on whether his precious son knew his place. After Warren left, I picked up the black card from the nightstand. A thin piece of plastic, yet felt as heavy as lead. This was the price they paid for 20 years of my life. I looked at the card without a shred of joy, only an endless, hollow sorrow. The next day, I had regained some of my strength. I changed into a new suit that Warren had someone prepare for me. The man in the mirror was pale, his eyes dark, but the expensive clothes made him look the part. Clothes make the man, indeed. An assistant named Mark Jennings was waiting for me downstairs. He was in his late 30s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking sharp and capable. When he saw me, he bowed respectfully. Good morning, young master. My name is Mark Jennings, the chairman's executive assistant. From now on, I will be responsible for all your affairs. Call me Leo, I said coldly. Yes, Mr. Vance. Mark adapted smoothly. He held the car door open for me, and we got into a black Bentley. The car headed toward the city's bustling financial district. The headquarters of the Vance Corporation was located there, a skyscraper that pierced the clouds, the words Vance Corporation gleaming in the sun. Mark led me through a VIP elevator directly to the chairman's office on the top floor. Warren's office was more minimalist than I expected. Besides a massive desk and a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf, there were no other decorations. Mark placed a thick stack of documents in front of me. Mr. Vance, this is the portfolio of all the corporation's current industries, including real estate, finance, technology, and entertainment. The chairman has instructed me to begin by taking you on a tour of the various subsidiaries to familiarize you with the business. I flipped through the files casually. The dense columns of numbers and technical jargon gave me a headache. I closed the binder and pushed it aside. That won't be necessary, I said. Mark paused. Then what are your instructions, sir? I want a list, I said, looking at him. A list of all the enemies of the Vance Corporation. And I want all the files on Caleb Vance's personal business ventures. The more detailed, the better. Mark's expression shifted instantly. He adjusted his glasses, looking troubled. Mr. Vance, the chairman's intention was for you to start with the foundational business units. Do you not understand me? I cut him off, my voice hardening. My gaze was like a sharpened blade, cutting straight through his professional demeanor. Mark flinched. He felt a pressure from me that was similar to Warren's, perhaps even more intense. He realized that the young man before him, despite his youth, was not someone to be taken lightly. He hesitated for a few seconds before finally nodding. Yes, I understand. Please give me some time. I'll prepare it immediately. Mark was efficient. In less than an hour, 2 files were on my desk. The first was a list of the Vance Corporation's competitors. It was a long list with over a dozen companies. At the top was an investment firm called Wolf Capital. The file noted that the company had a mysterious background, acted ruthlessly, and had, in the past year, targeted several companies partnered with Vance Corp, using extremely brutal tactics. The second file was Caleb's personal portfolio. He owned 3 businesses, an entertainment company that managed a few moderately popular social media influencers, a high-end private club for the rich and powerful, and a loan company. When I saw the words loan company, my eyes narrowed. I read on. The file revealed that Caleb's company was not engaged in legitimate business. They specialized in targeting college students in desperate need of cash, setting traps to lure them into signing predatory loan agreements with exorbitant interest rates. Once the students couldn't pay, they would use various violent methods to collect. The last page of the file detailed several case studies. One was about a female student named Hannah Green. Her father was critically ill, and she urgently needed money, so she borrowed $50,000 from Caleb's company. With compounding interest, the debt ballooned to $500,000 in less than 6 months. She was completely unable to repay it. The collectors sent naked photos of her to every student and faculty member at her university and even went to her father's hospital room to cause a scene. In the end, unable to bear the humiliation, the girl jumped from the roof of her dormitory. Her father, devastated by the shock, passed away that same night. I stared at the black and white photo of the smiling, vibrant girl. My fist clenched unconsciously. I saw myself in her, struggling in desperation. If I hadn't made it through, if I'd been pushed to the edge, would my fate have been any different? Caleb, you really deserve to die. I picked up the phone and dialed Mark's extension. Set up a meeting with the head of Wolf Capital. Tell him Leo Vance of the Vance Corporation wants to discuss a business proposal. Mark worked fast, or rather, Wolf Capital responded quickly. Less than 30 minutes after my call, they had replied. 8 o'clock tonight, at the city's most exclusive private club, the Apex Club. Interestingly, the Apex Club was one of Caleb's properties. Was this a coincidence or a deliberate choice by the other party? I put down the phone, a cold smile touching my lips. Either way, tonight's show was going to be interesting. In the evening, I had Mark drive me home. Not to the magnificent villa, but back to my old, run-down apartment. I needed to pick something up. The car stopped at the entrance of the familiar alley. Mark stared at the slum, so alien from the world he inhabited, a look of shock on his face. He probably couldn't imagine that the young master of the Vance Corporation had grown up in a place like this. I ignored his surprise and walked straight into the crumbling tenement building. My room was just as I had left it, everything covered in a thin layer of dust. I walked to the bed and lifted the worn-out mattress. Underneath, wrapped in a cloth, was an object. I unwrapped it. It was a rusted fruit knife. I had found it in a garbage dump when I was 10 to protect myself. It had been with me through countless terrifying nights. I wrapped it back up and put it in my coat pocket. Then I walked to the windowless wall. Taped to it was a photograph. It was yellowed with age, showing a girl with a sweet smile. It was Chloe. She had given it to me when we first got together. She said she wanted her smile to be the sunlight in my windowless room. I stared at the photo for a long, long time. Then I reached out and tore it from the wall. Along with the last laughable remnants of affection in my heart, I tore it to shreds. At 8 o'clock sharp, I arrived at the Apex Club. The place certainly lived up to its name. The decor was the pinnacle of luxury, a golden palace that seemed to scrape the heavens. The patrons were all impeccably dressed, the elite of the elite. A manager in a slinky designer dress respectfully led me to a private room on the top floor. Mr. Vance, Wolf is already waiting for you inside. I pushed open the door and walked in. There was only one man in the room. He was wearing a black silk shirt, his back to me, slowly brewing tea. He didn't turn around, simply said in a low voice, "Sit." I sat down across from him. He poured a cup of tea and pushed it toward me. The aroma was fragrant. Try it. This year's first flush Darjeeling. I picked up the cup but didn't drink, just held it to my nose. I don't know anything about tea, I said. Doesn't matter if you don't know. The man finally turned to face me. He looked to be in his 40s. A long scar ran from the corner of his eye to his mouth, giving him a fierce, predatory look. Drink enough of it, and you'll learn. Same with people. See enough of them, and you'll understand. His gaze was as sharp as a hawk's, as if it could see right through me. You're the head of Wolf Capital, the man they call Wolf? I asked. He smiled, revealing a set of white teeth. That's what they call me. You wanted to see me. Why? I want to make a deal with you, I said, getting straight to the point. Oh, he raised an eyebrow, intrigued. I'm listening. I want you to help me destroy someone. Who? Caleb Vance. At the mention of the name, Wolf's expression didn't change. He just lifted his teacup, blew on it gently, and took a sip. Warren Vance's son? Yes. Reason. He deserves to die. Wolf put down his cup and looked at me, a slow smile spreading across his face. Interesting. Do you know that he owns this club? I do. And do you know that the Vance Corporation is Wolf Capital's next target? I know that too. And you still came to me? Wolf's eyes became playful. Aren't you afraid I'll take you down with him? You won't, I said with certainty, meeting his eyes. Why not? Because you and I are the same kind of people. We both enjoy watching those high and mighty types fall from grace. Besides, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Wolf was stunned. The scar on his face seemed to twitch. He stared at me for a full 30 seconds, then suddenly burst out laughing. Ha ha, good. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Excellent. Warren Vance was a titan his whole life, and yet he produced a son as interesting as you. I'll take this deal. Tell me, what do you want me to do? It's simple. I took a flash drive from my pocket and pushed it across the table to him. On here is all the dirt on Caleb's loan company, all the evidence of his fraudulent accounting, violent collection practices, and the lives he's ruined. I want you to leak all of it. I want him utterly disgraced. I want him to rot in prison. Wolf picked up the flash drive, weighing it in his hand, a cruel smile on his face. That's it. That's it. Done. I guarantee that within 3 days, you'll see his name on every news headline. A pleasure doing business with you, I said, standing up. Wait, Wolf called out. Something else? Don't you want to know why I'm going after the Vance family? I stopped and looked back at him. Why? Wolf's eyes instantly filled with a venomous hatred. Because 20 years ago, your father, Warren Vance, used the same tactics you're using now to destroy my family and drive my father to financial ruin. My dad jumped from the roof of this very building. I froze. So, behind the so-called business competition, there was a blood feud. No wonder he was so relentless in his pursuit of the Vance family. Now, Wolf asked coldly, do you still think we're friends? Yes, I answered without hesitation. At least, when it comes to bringing down the Vance family, we are. With that, I turned and left the room. As I walked out, I heard Wolf mutter behind me, Warren Vance. You probably never dreamed that the son you value most would be the one to hand-deliver your doom. I didn't look back. I left the club and got into Mark's car. Where to, Mr. Vance? To a good place to watch a show. Half an hour later, the car pulled up in front of a hotel. This hotel was directly across the street from the one where Caleb and Chloe were having their engagement party. I checked into a suite with the best possible view. Standing at the massive floor-to-ceiling window, I looked at the brightly lit hotel opposite me. I knew the show was about to begin. 3 days later was Caleb and Chloe's engagement party. Almost every person of consequence in the city had received an invitation. The Vance family had booked the most luxurious 6-star hotel in the city center. The event was extravagantly grand. Warren wanted to use this union to declare to the world that the next generation of the Vance family was ready to take charge. Unfortunately for him, he had made a gross miscalculation. On the day of the party, I didn't attend. I just stayed in my hotel suite, watching everything unfold across the street through a high-powered telescope. At 6 in the evening, guests began to arrive. A parade of luxury cars stopped at the hotel entrance. Glamorously dressed men and women walked smilingly down the red carpet. Warren and Isabel, as the hosts, stood at the entrance, greeting guests with beaming faces. Caleb and Chloe stood beside them like the perfect couple. Caleb was in a custom-made white suit, his hair impeccably styled, a look of triumphant pride on his face. Chloe wore an expensive gown, her makeup flawless, looking as beautiful as a princess. She held Caleb's arm, a happy smile on her face. Though from my perspective, that smile seemed a bit stiff. I wondered if she'd still be able to smile when she saw the engagement gift I had prepared for her. At 8 o'clock, the ceremony officially began. Inside the hotel ballroom, a massive screen started playing a romantic video of Caleb and Chloe, from their first meeting to falling in love. It was all edited to be incredibly moving and romantic. The guests below applauded and offered their blessings. Caleb, holding Chloe's hand, walked onto the stage. The MC spoke in an enthusiastic voice, offering words of congratulations. Then, he handed the microphone to Caleb. And now, let's give a warm round of applause for our handsome groom, Mr. Caleb Vance, to share with us how he's feeling at this very moment. Caleb took the microphone and cleared his throat. He looked at Chloe with deep affection and began, Chloe, meeting you is the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. He hadn't even finished his sentence when the huge screen in the ballroom suddenly flickered. The romantic video was replaced by a screen of static. Then, without warning, a series of disturbing photos and shocking videos appeared. It was all the evidence of Caleb's predatory loan company's violent collection practices. Photos of debtors beaten bloody. Videos of collectors vandalizing homes, splashing paint. And the video of the girl, Hannah Green, her tearful plea just before she jumped. Please, I'm begging you, let me go. My dad is really dying. I'll spend the rest of my life repaying you. I'll do anything. The girl's desperate cries echoed through the ballroom sound system. Everyone was stunned. The venue fell into a dead silence, which was immediately followed by a massive uproar. My God, what is this? That Caleb Vance is involved in something so despicable. This is disgusting. He drove someone to suicide. How could the Vance family raise a son like this? On stage, Caleb's face turned deathly white. He stood there, holding the microphone, trembling so hard he couldn't speak. Chloe was even more terrified, letting out a sharp scream and collapsing to the floor. Warren was the first to react, roaring at the technicians backstage. Shut it off. Shut it off now. But it was no use. The screen was out of their control. The evidence of his crimes played on a loop, a public execution for all to see. To make matters worse, someone must have called the police. The ballroom doors were suddenly thrown open, and a group of uniformed officers rushed in. The lead officer, holding an arrest warrant, walked onto the stage. Caleb Vance, you're under arrest for suspicion of illegal business operations, violent collections, and aggravated assault, among other charges. Cold handcuffs were snapped onto Caleb's wrists. No, it wasn't me. I'm being framed. Caleb finally snapped out of his shock and began to struggle and scream wildly. Dad, help me. Dad. Warren tried to step forward, but was blocked by the police. He watched as his most beloved son was dragged away like an animal. He trembled with rage, gasped for air, and then collapsed to the floor. Warren, Isabel shrieked, rushing to his side. The entire engagement party devolved into a complete farce. Guests scattered like rats, terrified of being associated with the Vance family. Reporters like sharks smelling blood, frantically snapped photos. I lowered my telescope, picked up a glass of red wine from the table, and downed it in one gulp. What a show. Caleb, did you like my engagement gift? I looked at the chaos across the street, feeling no joy, only a hollow coldness. Was this the end? No, this was just the beginning. My phone rang. It was Wolf. Did you receive the gift? He asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. I did. It was spectacular. Don't get too excited. There's more to come, Wolf said. I've already had someone anonymously report the evidence of the Vance Corporation's tax evasion and bribery of public officials. First thing tomorrow morning, the IRS and the SEC will be paying the Vance Corporation a visit. Even if Warren manages to stay out of prison this time, the Vance family is finished. I was silent. I hadn't expected Wolf's methods to be even more ruthless, more absolute than mine. He was planning to uproot the entire Vance family tree. What? Having second thoughts, Wolf seemed to notice my silence. No. Good, Wolf said. Don't worry. I promised you I wouldn't touch you. When the Vance family falls, I'll leave you your share. I don't need it, I said. Oh, what I want, I'll take for myself. With that, I hung up. I stared out the window, the city's neon lights blurring into a smear of color. I thought revenge would make me happy. So why did my heart feel so empty? Just then, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I went and opened it. The person standing there surprised me. It was Chloe. She was still in her white gown, but the hem was stained and torn. Her makeup was streaked with tears, her hair a mess. She looked utterly broken. She looked at me, her eyes filled with terror and desperation. Leo, she began, and then she fell to her knees. Please, let Caleb go. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. You did this, didn't you? Please, I'm begging you, have mercy. Let him off this one time. She clung to my legs, sobbing hysterically. I looked down at the woman kneeling at my feet, the woman I once loved with every fiber of my being, now groveling for another man. I felt nothing. What makes you think I did it? I asked calmly. Who else could it be? Chloe looked up, her eyes swimming in tears. I know you hate us. You hate me. You hate Caleb. You hate your parents. But Caleb is innocent. He was just spoiled by your parents. He doesn't have a bad heart. There was again. That doesn't have a bad heart excuse. I laughed. Not a bad heart. When he was setting traps for people, driving them to ruin their lives and families, you didn't seem to think he had a bad heart then. Chloe was speechless. Of course, she knew what Caleb had done. She might have even been an accomplice. After all, she had helped manage the books for his entertainment company. Leo, I know he did wrong things, and he'll be punished by the law. Chloe switched tactics, tried to appeal to my emotions. But we were in love once, weren't we? Do you remember? In our sophomore year, you were sick, and I was the one who carried you to the clinic. Do you remember your birthday? I used my scholarship money that I had saved for 6 months to buy you a watch. Have you really forgotten all of that? I looked at her as if she were a stranger. I remember. Of course, I remember. I also remember you complaining about how heavy I was the entire way to the clinic. And I remember that the watch you gave me was on Caleb's wrist the very next day. Chloe, aren't you tired after playing a role for so many years? Chloe's face went deathly pale. She probably never imagined I remembered those details. She thought I was just a fool blinded by love. She opened her mouth but couldn't utter a single word. Every layer of her facade had been ruthlessly stripped away. Get out, I said, pointing to the door, the single word dripping with ice. Leo, Chloe suddenly became frantic. She scrambled up from the floor and grabbed my arm. You can't do this to me. You can't be so heartless. You still love me, don't you? You must still love me. That's why you're taking revenge on us, right? Leo, let's start over, please. I'll leave Caleb. I'll be with you. I'll help you. And together we could take back everything from the Vance family. From now on, I'll be your woman, and yours alone. Her words made my stomach churn. I violently shook her hand off, the force sending her stumbling to the floor. Do you really think you are in any position to negotiate with me? I looked down at her, my eyes filled with contempt. To me, you're not even as valuable as a piece of trash on the street. At least I could sell the trash for money. You just make me sick. My words were the sharpest of knives, shattering the last of her dignity. She sat slumped on the floor, her eyes vacant, as if her soul had been ripped out. Without another glance, I turned and shut the door. I leaned against it, my body sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. I had finally, with my own hands, destroyed the last beautiful memory of my life. The next day, just as Wolf had predicted, the Vance Corporation was raided. The IRS and the SEC sealed the offices, seizing all financial records and taking the senior executives into custody. Warren Vance was arrested on suspicion of multiple financial crimes. Isabel sold all her jewelry and properties, begging for help, but was met with closed doors everywhere. When the wall falls, everyone gives it a push. The same people who had once fawned over the Vance family now kept their distance, terrified of being implicated. The largest business empire in the city collapsed overnight. I became the sole survivor of the storm. It seemed Warren had anticipated something before his arrest. He had legally isolated all the assets under my name. I inherited the bulk of what remained of the Vance family fortune. While it was a shadow of its former glory, it was still an astronomical sum. From a poor kid living on stale bread, I had become one of the city's newest tycoons. Many people wanted to get close to me. Many wanted to know how I had managed to come out of the storm unscathed. I ignored the outside world. The first thing I did was sell the magnificent villa. Then, I went back to the alley where I was raised. I found Old Man Sal at his hot dog stand. I bought the small, vacant storefront next to him and opened a small diner. It wasn't big, just a few simple, home-cooked dishes on the menu. I did the cooking myself. On opening day, an unexpected guest showed up. It was Wolf. He was still wearing his silk shirt, but the scar on his face seemed less menacing in the daylight. He sat alone, ordered the meatloaf and a beer. He ate slowly. When he was finished, he looked at me and said, "Not bad." "Thanks. What are your plans now?" he asked. "Run this place. Live a quiet life?" I said. Wolf smiled. "A man like you, content to spend the rest of your life in a kitchen?" "Why not?" I retorted. "At least here, every bite of food I eat is clean." Wolf fell silent. He took an envelope from his pocket and pushed it across the table to me. Inside is a plane ticket to go abroad and some cash. The Vance family is gone, but Warren had plenty of enemies. "It's not safe for you here. Get out of the city for a while. Come back when things have cooled down." I didn't take the envelope. "You got your revenge. Do you feel better?" I asked him. Wolf was taken aback. The smile on his face slowly faded. He picked up his glass and downed the rest of his beer. "No." He stared out the window, his eyes holding a weariness I couldn't quite understand. "I spent 20 years destroying my enemy, but I can never get back what I lost." With that, he stood up, left a few bills under his plate, and walked out. I watched his retreating back and saw a glimpse of my own future. We were both prisoners of the past, trapped by our hatred. And once revenge was done, what then? What was lost forever. The diner's business was steady. I worked from sunrise to sunset, my life as calm as still water. I thought this was it, that the rest of my life would pass without any more drama. Until a woman appeared and shattered that peace. Her name was Claire, and she owned a flower shop across the street from my diner. She was beautiful, not in the polished way Chloe was, but with a comfortable, warm kind of beauty. She always wore a simple linen dress, and when she smiled, her eyes curved like crescent moons. She came into the diner every day and ordered the cheapest bowl of soup on the menu. She would sit quietly in a corner, finish her meal, and then leave just as quietly. Sometimes she would bring me a bouquet of flowers. Not expensive ones, just wildflowers she'd picked from the side of the road. "You always look so sad and lonely," she'd say. "I thought these might brighten your day." I never knew how to respond, so I would just silently accept them and put them in the most prominent vase in the diner. Slowly, we got to know each other. I learned that she was also on her own in this city. She learned about my past, but she didn't look at me with pity or curiosity like everyone else. She just said, "That's all in the past now." Those simple words were more comforting than anything else anyone had ever said to me. The ice that had encased my heart for so long began to show the faintest signs of melting. I started looking forward to her daily visits. I started learning how to smile at her. I even started to imagine that maybe, just maybe, I could live a normal life, that I could love someone again. Just when I thought life was finally smiling on me, an unwelcome visitor shattered everything. That afternoon, Claire came in for soup as usual. We were chatting when the diner door was suddenly kicked open. A few thuggish-looking men swaggered in. The leader was bald, with a menacing dragon tattoo coiling up his arm. "Which one of you is Leo Vance?" the bald man boomed. I stood up, moving Claire behind me. "I am." The man looked me up and down, then grinned, revealing a set of yellow teeth. "Someone paid good money for one of your legs." My heart dropped. I knew it. Trouble had finally found me. Was it one of Warren's enemies? Or one of Caleb's loyalists? I didn't have time to think. The bald man waved his hand, and his men, armed with steel pipes, surrounded me. Claire screamed. "Don't be afraid," I said, patting her shoulder reassuringly. Then I grabbed a meat cleaver from the knife block in the kitchen. "You better think this through. You touch me, and you won't walk away from this either," I said, my voice cold as I faced them. I didn't want any more trouble, but that didn't mean I was afraid of it. If they were going to force my hand, I had no problem reminding them that I hadn't survived 20 years on the streets for nothing. The bald man saw the cleaver in my hand, but instead of being scared, he laughed. "Oh, tough guy, huh? Boys, get him. If anything happens, I'll take the heat." A fight was inevitable. I could handle myself, but I was outnumbered, and they were armed. I was quickly overwhelmed. A steel pipe slammed into my arm, and the cleaver flew from my grasp. The bald man sneered, closing in on me. "Next time you're born, kid, watch who you cross." He raised the steel pipe and brought it down hard, aiming for my leg. I closed my eyes, bracing for the impact, but the searing pain I expected never came. I opened my eyes to a sight that will be forever burned into my memory. Claire, the gentle, soft-spoken woman, was standing in front of me. The cold steel pipe had slammed squarely across her back. Ugh! She let out a muffled grunt, her body slumping to the floor. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, staining her white linen dress crimson. "Claire!" A primal roar ripped from my throat. I don't know where the strength came from, but I launched myself from the floor, lunging at the bald man and sinking my teeth into his neck. I bit down with all my might, as if trying to tear the flesh from his body. The man let out a blood-curdling scream. His men were stunned, likely having never seen such a feral, desperate attack. Just then, the wail of police sirens grew louder outside. Someone must have called 911. The thugs, seeing their time was up, dropped their pipes and fled. I didn't chase them. I scrambled to Claire's side, scooped her into my arms, and ran outside like a man possessed. "Claire, hold on. You have to be okay." Her blood was all over my hands, warm and blindingly red. I ran down the street, screaming, "Help! Somebody help her!" Pedestrians stared at me like I was a madman. I didn't care. I just needed her to live. I got her to the hospital. The light above the operating room door stayed on for a long, long time. Those few hours were the longest wait of my life. I sat on a bench in the hallway, covered in blood, like a soulless statue. My mind was a complete blank. If anything happened to Claire, what would I do? I couldn't bear to think about it. Finally, the operating room door opened. A doctor came out, pulling off his mask. "The patient is out of immediate danger." Hearing those words, the tension that had held me together snapped. My vision went black, and I passed out. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. Claire was lying in the adjacent bed. She was still unconscious, but her breathing was steady. I looked at her pale face, my heart aching with guilt and fear. This was my fault. She was hurt because of me. I sat by her bedside for 3 days and 3 nights. When she finally woke up, she saw me and managed a weak smile. "Am I okay?" Tears I could no longer hold back streamed down my face. A 25-year-old man, crying like a child. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." It was all I could say. "Silly." She reached out, trying to wipe away my tears. "It's not your fault." I took her cold hand and pressed it to my cheek. "Claire," I looked in her eyes and said, word by word, "When you get better, will you marry me?" Claire was stunned. Then she smiled, that beautiful smile I saw the first day we met, her eyes curving into crescent moons. "Yes." After she was discharged, the first thing I did was close the diner. I took Claire and we left the city. We moved to a small town on the southern coast. The weather was warm year-round, and our front door faced the ocean. I used the money I had left to buy a small house with a yard. We filled the yard with all of Claire's favorite flowers. We also got a cat and named him Bagel. I never looked back. I never asked about what happened in the city. Caleb, Warren, Chloe, Wolf. Those people, those events, they felt like memories from a past life, locked away and buried. My life became simple. I spent my days with Claire, watching the ocean, planting flowers, and playing with the cat. She had a long scar on her back from the attack. On rainy days, it would ache. Whenever it did, I would hold her and kiss the scar over and over. "I'm sorry. Don't say that anymore," she would say, covering my mouth. "Leo, you have nothing to be sorry for. You just had it so hard." She was right. I'd had it hard for 25 years. But now, I had a light in my life, a real, warm light. She healed all my wounds. I thought that was it. This was the end of my story. Peaceful, stable, happy. Until the day a package arrived from my old city. Inside, there was nothing but a newspaper and a photograph. The newspaper was 6 months old. The headline was an article about Caleb Vance's execution. The photograph was a family portrait. In it, Warren and Isabel were holding a newborn baby, smiling happily. The baby's features between the eyes and nose looked exactly like mine as a child. On the back of the photo, a single line was written in red ink. "Bro, the game is just getting started."